a pleasant day to each and everyone. So we, the group 2, will going to tackle about the Piaget stages of cognitive development. According to Piaget, children not only know less than adults, they think very differently. He divided children's cognitive development in 4 stages. Each of the stages represent a new way of thinking and understanding the world. Jean Piaget proposed 4 major stages, which is the sensory-motor intelligence, second is the pre-operational thinking, third is the concrete operational thinking, lastly is the formal operational thinking. Each stage is correlated with an age period of childhood but only approximately. Jean Piaget studied cognitive development for almost 60 years. His research strategy entailed watching a small group of people respond to cognitive tasks that he devised. These exercises became known as Piagetian tasks subsequently. The cognitive structures by which persons mentally adapt to and arrange their surroundings were referred to as a schema. By Piaget, it is a person's attempt to comprehend or make meaning from a thing or experience.
So next, let us talk about assimilation. So, what is assimilation? Assimilation is the process of fitting new experience in an existing or previously created schema, cognitive of a schema. So what is schema? Schema can be explained as, or can be illustrated as, a filing cabinet in a child's mind. So the cabinet, every drawer in a cabinet can be explained as schema. So assimilation is the process of fitting new experience or a new experience in an existing or previously created schema. So in that, for example of this is, in a schema of a child, there exists one cabinet which explained what a dog will be. So in that, this description in the mind's child of a dog is, it has 4 legs, furry, and it will bark. So if a child sees a similar dog but smaller, he will try to put it and add it in its schema of a dog. So the new description of a dog will be, the dog can be big or small, it has 4 legs, and it can also bark. So assimilation is achieved. So next, let's talk about what is accommodation. So what is accommodation? Accommodation is the process of creating a new schema. So a great example of this will be that if a child sees something that looks like a dog but somehow a little bit different, like it has 4 legs, it is furry, but it barks different. So the child will tell its mom that, "Mom, look at that, Mom. What a funny looking dog, and it barks funny too." So then the mom will say that that's not a funny looking dog, but instead it is a goat. So with the help of mommy's further explanation or further description of what a goat will be, a child can now create a new schema in his filing cabinet of what a goat will be. So in that schema, there is now a description about what a goat is. So next will be equilibration. Piaget believed that people have the natural needs to know how the world works around us, like predictability in their life, or proper order of things, and etc. So equilibration is achieving proper balance between assimilation and accommodation. So when our experiences do not match our schemata or cognitive structure, and this means that there will be a discrepancy between what is perceived and what is understood. So in order to achieve equilibration, we must exert enough effort between the two, like assimilation and accommodation. So assimilation is the process of fitting new idea in an existing one, and accommodation is the process of creating a new schemata or new schema. So if we exert enough effort between these two, we can now achieve equilibration. So a new schema will be made, and there will be another file about a new schema in the child's filing cabinet in his mind.
And now I am going to tackle about the various stages of cognitive development. Stage 1. The sensory motor stage. This first stage corresponds from birth to infancy. This is a stage when a child who is initially reflexive and grasping, sucking, and reaching becomes more organized in his movement and activity. The term sensory motor focuses on the prominence of the senses and muscle movement through which the infant comes to learn about himself and the world. In working with children in the sensory stage, teachers should aim to provide a rich and stimulating environment with appropriate objects to play with. In the sensory motor stage, children repeatedly experiment with their senses through various methods in many different environments. This period is characterized by rapid cognitive growth. Another important hallmark of the sensory motor stage is that children learn the concept of cause and effect. Object permanence. This is the ability of the child to know that an object still exists even when out of sight. This ability is attained in the sensory motor stage. The main development during the sensory motor stage is the understanding that objects exist and events occur in the world independently of one's own action. The object concept or the object permanence. Object permanence means knowing that an object still exists even if it is hidden. This stage marks the period between birth and age 2. During this stage, your baby learns to experiment and explore through movement and their senses. Stage 2. Pre-operational stage. It covers from about 2 to 7 years old, roughly corresponding to the preschool years. Intelligence at this stage is intuitive in nature. At this stage, the child can now make a mental representations and is able to pretend. The child is now ever closer to the use of symbols. This stage begins around age 2, as children start to talk and lasts until approximately age 7. During this stage, children begin to engage in symbolic play and learn to manipulate symbols. Some examples a child is at the pre-operational stage include imitating the way someone talks or moves even when they are not in the room, drawing people and objects from their own life but understanding that they are only representations, pretending a stick is a sword or that a broom is a horse during play.
The second stage is the pre-operational stage, which is highlighted by the following. First is the symbolic function. Symbolic function is the ability to represent objects and events. A symbol is a thing that represents something else. For example, a drawing, a written word, or a spoken word comes to be understood as representing a real object like a real MRT train. Symbolic function gradually develops in the period between 2 to 7 years old. Real. A 2-year-old may pretend that she is drinking from a glass which is empty. Though she already pretends the presence of water, the glass remains to be a glass. At around 4 years of age, however, Nico may, after pretending to drink from an empty glass, turn the glass into a rocket ship or a telephone. By the age of 6 or 7, the child can pretend play with objects that exist only in his mind. Enzo, who is 6, can do a whole Ninja Turtle routine without any costume nor props. Trial, who is 7, can pretend to host an elaborate princess ball only in her mind. Next is the egocentrism. Egocentrism is the tendency of the child to only see his point of view and to assume that everyone also has the same point of view. The child cannot take the perspective of others. You see this in 5-year-old boy who buys a toy truck for his mother's birthday, or a 3-year-old girl who cannot understand why her cousins call her daddy uncle and not daddy. The third one is the centration. Centration refers to the tendency of the child to only focus on one aspect of a thing or even and exclude other aspects. For example, when a child is presented with 2 identical glasses with the same amount of water, However, once water from one of the glasses is transferred to an obviously taller but narrowed glass, the child might say that there is more water in the taller glass. The child only focused or centered only one aspect of the new glass, that is a taller glass. The child was not able to perceive that the new glass is also a narrower. The child only centered on the height of the glass and excluded the width in the determining the amount of water in the glass. The fourth one is the irreversibility. Irreversibility. Pre-operational children still have the inability to reverse their thinking. They can understand that 2 plus 3 is 5, but cannot understand 5 minus 3 is 2. The fifth one is the animism. Animism is the tendency of children to attribute human-like traits or characteristics to inanimate objects. When at night, the child is asked where the sun is, she or he will reply, Mr. Sun is asleep. Lastly, the transductive reasoning refers to the pre-operational child's type of reasoning that is neither inductive nor deductive. Reasoning appears to be from particular to a particular. Example, if A caused B, then B causes A. Another example is, since her mommy comes home every day around 6 o'clock in the evening, when asked why it is already night, the child will say, because my mom is already home. Let us now proceed to the next stage of Piaget's stages of cognitive development. The next stage is concrete operational stage. This stage is characterized by the ability of the child to think logically but only in terms of concrete objects. This covers approximately the ages between 8 to 11 years or the elementary school years. The concrete operational stage is marked by the following. First is the decentering. Decentering refers to the ability of the child to perceive the different features of objects and situations. No longer is the child focused or limited to one aspect or dimension. This allows the child to be more logical when dealing with concrete objects and situations. Next is the reversibility. Reversibility, during the stage of concrete operations, the child can now follow those certain operations can be done in reverse. For example, they can already comprehend the commutative property of addition and that subtraction is the reverse of addition. They can also understand that a ball of a clay shaped into a dinosaur can again be rolled back into a ball of a clay. Next is the conversation. Conversation is the ability to know that certain properties of objects like number, mass, volume, or area do not change even if there is a change in appearance. Because of the development of the child's ability to decentering and also reversibility, the concrete operational child can now judge rightly that the amount of water in a taller but narrower container is still the same as when the water was in the shorter but wider glass. The children progress to attain conversation abilities, gradually being a pre-conserver, a transitional thinker, then a conserver, a transitional thinker, and then a conserver. Lastly is the serration. Serration refers to the ability to order or arrange things in a series based on one dimension, such as weight, volume, or size.
Stage 4. Formal operational stage. In the final stage of formal operations covering between 12 and 15 years, thinking becomes more logical. They can now solve problem solving and can hypothesize. This stage is characterized by the following. First, hypothetical reasoning. This is the ability to come up with different hypotheses about a problem, to gather data in order to create a final decision. Second, analogical reasoning. This is the ability to perceive the relationship in an instance and then use that relationship to narrow down possible answers in another similar situation or problem. The third and the last one is deductive reasoning. This is the ability to think logically by applying a general rule to a particular instance or situation.
From Piaget's findings and comprehensive theory, we can derive the following principles. So number 1, children will provide different explanation of reality at different stages of cognitive development. So as we tackled a while ago, the different stages of cognitive development of a child, we can say that they provide different sides or explanation of the things that exist in her memory, according to what he or she see or perceive that thing. So the number 2 principles, cognitive development is facilitated by providing activities or situations that engage learners and require adaptation. So number 3, learning materials and activities should involve the appropriate level of motor or mental operations for a child of a given age, and avoid asking students to perform tasks that are beyond their current cognitive capabilities. So, learning materials and activities must fit to the mental operation or the level of his or her cognition of a child so that he or she can understand. So, the last one is use teaching methods that actively involve students and present challenges.